everyone. Hello Haxe Summit, also new for me. I'm Andre. I'm the team lead developer of the title Forge of Empires from InnoGames. You also see, of course, some roll-ups already here around. And yeah, maybe that's better, right? Um, and yeah, today I will present you about our conversion of Forge of Empires, which is a Flash game, obviously. I mean, it's a cross-platform game also for mobile, but now we, of course, focus on the Flash version and the port to HTML5. Yeah, why we are here? Obviously, because also we use Haxe and OpenFL for it. And yeah, this presentation today that I do in the morning is just for 15 minutes. And this also means that we cannot give all the details right now. But I want also to tease a little bit that there's a presentation in the afternoon. It's for 1 hour, and there we really explain every detail, how we created the workflow, how we built the pipeline to have basically 100% automation. Yeah, so when we talk about that, I also want to give you a little bit of context, of course. I mean, if you don't know InnoGames, maybe. Yeah, InnoGames is one of the world's leading developers of online games. It's founded in 2007, and it is based in Hamburg, and now also it has a studio in Düsseldorf. It employs more than 400 professionals from 30 nations, and had a revenue of 130 million euros in 2016, so in last year. So definitely it was also, it's a great success, and yeah, for sure Forge of Empires plays a big role in there. Here's a portfolio of some titles of InnoGames. There are 6 live titles currently, and these are the biggest ones, while Forge here is not the newest one anymore, but still the biggest one. And this is also meaning that this is the flagship of InnoGames. And this also, of course, explains why it is so important for us to build a HTML5 version so that we can have the browser version continuing in the next years. So you also see it here already. I will also come to that. It's released in 2012, so it's already 5 years old, right? And still it's growing, still it's heavily maintained. And this also means that we have some objectives that are not so easy to fulfill, because what we have to do is, of course, what we want to do is that we deliver content to the player every single week. And this means when we port, we cannot just say we stop development now, we make a code freeze, we make a feature freeze, and then we have a porting whatever time is running, and maybe half a year or so, we don't know. This is nothing that can happen easily. So, Forge of Empires. It's a city building strategy game. It has a lifetime revenue of more than 250 million euros since this year. It is released, as I said, in 2012 as a browser-only game written in ActionScript. So this is also an important thing when we come to what technology are we using. And yeah, the ActionScript version was released first. Then the iOS version was released in 2014, and it is written in C++. And of course, this might be already also an interesting story why we have 2 different code bases for the front end, while the iOS version in that case is in C++. Likewise to the Android version, obviously, so all the mobile versions that are released then for Google in 2015, and then also placed in the Samsung and in the Amazon store in 2016. So what we have now is a title that is kind of a cross-platform game, obviously, but yeah, the browser version is totally different from the mobile version. And this also can give some opportunities for us, because of course when we thought about how can we now solve this problem of Flash, maybe we can also go from the mobile version or so and bring that mobile version also into the browser somehow. But on the other hand, also there are a lot of differences already. So in the beginning, obviously, of course, when we had the ActionScript version, the C++ version was evolved out of that, basically. So we catched up all the features and have rewritten the whole game in C++. But over the time, even if the features are totally the same, so the whole UI, everything is so different. And yes, of course, when it was developed the first time, it was not really planned for mobile. And this also means that there are a lot of mechanics in there that are not really so mobile-ish, right? I mean, we can just talk about network connection stuff and everything like that. That was not really the biggest focus when the browser version was developed. Yeah, just also to my person again, maybe, because when I joined it, that was already existing. And so I first took over the mobile version to bring it also on Android and on the Samsung and Amazon store. And since nearly 2 years now, I also have the browser version under my control, so that we also try to find something and to bring the front end more closely together, not just as a team, because the teams were also separated, but also to yeah, maybe also technology-wise, and to have a solid state for both versions. Yeah, breaking news, obviously, right? Flash is dying. I mean, this happened, right? And we were also hit by that, kind of. And as I said, so when we started with objectives for last year, basically, of, okay, we want to have really content every single week. We want to have, grow the game even more. We want to have a high mobile focus. But of course, also, we want to continue and to deliver something great for all the browser players. Of course, then this popped up somehow and was getting... I mean, it was not popping up last year, it was already rumors, but at least then at some point it was announced, and then even later in the year, the final date was as well announced. So what have we done? So what now? What can we do? Of course, possible solutions we gathered in early 2016, and we talked about different possibilities, what can we do, which technologies can we use, and we also set the objectives, like I already said. Of course, we have some plans and we have some roadmaps. And to change all that, we have a team set up and everything was really planned and ready. And then it came in and then, okay, now we have to find a solution. And for sure, we set up some objectives. We will also come to that in detail later. There are some involved. Like, of course, we want to have a good risk management. We want to have a very structured approach. We don't want the code freeze, that's for sure. We never want to have a code freeze because that does not fit at all in every of the business plans. And some others, of course. Like, for example, do we really want to have an automated pipeline that is forever basically just building it all the time from the ActionScript client, or do we want to move at some point also to a different language, like, for example, to Haxe, and to build or to develop that version further, and then drop the ActionScript version at some point in time when everything is really ready. But during that time, we want to have the parallel development. So the first plan was also to created to set up a dedicated team. So the team right now, at least the browser team, was with 6 developers. And then we decided, okay, it would be nice if, of course, we have a dedicated team. Again, it was not so easy to do it directly, but we planned then a little bit, created a first draft of the roadmap, and in the end officially started porting with a dedicated team of 2 developers out of that 6 developers in October. So the plan. Basically, yes, as I said already, we want to port the existing browser version. So we want to reuse the existing code base, we don't want to rewrite. That's out of scope, kind of, because we already saw that with the mobile version how long this really took, and to catch up all the features, how big the team was to do that, and we don't want to do that again. We want to automate as much as possible. We want to have this parallel development, kind of. So we want to continue ActionScript development all the time. We want to release new features all the time, every single week, and we want to avoid a code freeze. We were not sure, of course, at the beginning if this is achievable. Of course, we planned for, yeah, try as much as possible. And in the end, yeah, we have to see and decide, also from the roadmap point of view, when do we have to make a code freeze? Or maybe we can do something like just a feature freeze in a way that, of course, we can... sorry, not a feature freeze. A code freeze, yes, but not a feature freeze. Because, of course, we can develop some features already in front of and then just release them later, right? This could be an option to avoid basically a code freeze that is directly affecting also a feature freeze. Was just an idea in the beginning, as I said. In the end now, I mean, obviously we are here and we also achieved something that this is really now 100%. Yeah, avoid manual porting. That was also something when we evolved the workflow that we realized at some point the manual porting and the manual effort, even if it's just now for this single game of InnoGames, was really high. So we created prototypes in the end and we already saw the workflow. It's possible for sure, but of course, the more we can automate, the easier it gets in the end. But of course also, I mean, that's the thing also when you're, as a developer, you're also promising something and then in the end, of course, you see, oh, it's not yet working out so well. And then, of course, it's nice if you see then, okay, our plans basically, okay, we want to have automation at some point really paid out. And that was really impressive how fast we get over time. So basically, first there was not that breakthrough. And then it suddenly, in 2 weeks or so, it was really such a huge progress made just because of the automation really fixed everything. And not everything, but right, I mean, a lot of stuff really automatically. Yeah, the technology itself. So of course that was not from the beginning on that we said Haxe. Haxe was a possibility then with OpenFL. Our main objective, of course, was to have the Flash API. So with OpenFL we had that. There are other possible solutions out there. But yeah, what we wanted to have is definitely that we have an easy learning curve. As I said, for the porting itself, we want to have it automated. So that's not really important how good the output, the converter output looks like. But in the end, if we want to switch to Haxe, we want to have good code quality, right? And we want to have a similar language because also our developers are ActionScript developers. So of course, if they switch to new language, I mean, it's also not easy to do. So of course, it's easier if the language is kind of similar. We want to have good documentation. Also there we had examples of other technologies which are then really difficult from the documentation wise. We want to have an active community, that would be of course best. We want to have a good tool chain. The best would be open source, because also we expected that, of course, yeah, not everything is yet there for automating everything. So building it ourselves, open source is a good thing. Good support as well. And as I already said, high quality conversion output is what we focused on. So yeah, what was in the end the thing that happened? This is really very quickly, and this is exactly the presentation in the afternoon, how we evolved that workflow from basically what was existing, like we could have used just the converter of the Haxe Foundation and then just convert the code. That is also still something that we use, and it's still part of our pipeline. But yeah, of course, it's heavily extended by several things, so that everything now comes together and really builds everything out of the box. Yeah, we started with setting up the dedicated team. We set up the tools. Of course, this is an evolving process, as I already said. It's nothing that we did just in the beginning and then we were done, right? This is something that we continuously changed a little bit here and there to find our way through the mess, basically. And in the end, I would say we made a good step there. We started with fixing conversion errors. That was also a thing that is quite interesting to see maybe in the detailed presentation, because how we tackled that. I mean, if you run the converter currently, you will get some errors. But if you have a huge project, or a big project at least, you will have all the dependencies. You will get errors in dependencies. You have to cut them down somehow, and you want to have a linear progress, because otherwise it explodes and you never know where you are. And therefore we developed something like it's called mock compilation. So we have a tool that creates mocks for every source files, and then in the end compiles it in a mocked environment, so that you have really the single errors of such a file, and then it's combined. If you do it for all the files, then you have a combined result, and you really know what are the most important errors, what are the most reoccurring errors, and you can fix them in a structured way, and you know where you are, and you know when you will finish. So that was really important for us. After that we fixed compilation errors. Was again something very similar, of course. After the conversion was fine and it was running with our code style, code guidelines, and everything, then it came to the compilation errors, of course, was quite similar. And yeah, right now we are of course facing some runtime errors. Good example definitely, and that is the most thing that is happening, might be that there's a feature not yet fully implemented or the same as in the Flash library, so that OpenFL or something like this, or some other library is not having the totally exact same behavior. That is very common. And the other thing is types, right? So we wanted to have a typed conversion, so it's a more type-safe language in Haxe. And this means if we convert from ActionScript, of course we will run into type errors. And also there we explain how we solve that, how it goes into the automation, and how the types are converted in the right way. Yeah, so now I have also to spoil a little bit that I need that curtain, because from InnoGames obviously we have the curtain. So this is basically currently our workflow. How we came to that will be explained, as I said, later. But what will happen is basically that we have the ActionScript source code here. It will run through the tool that we call the preparser, that prepare that source code a little bit to ease the conversion. It also does some other stuff that will be explained what it also can do, for example, creating mocks and something like that. And then in the end, that code goes into the converter. And that is the converter of the Haxe Foundation heavily extended. So for example, the Flash API goes in there. This is the ActionScript API. So that we have all the types of Flash basically already available in the converter. Also the API of all libraries go in there, so that we also have all the types of all the libraries available in the converter. And when we convert the code, we have all the, not just the local types of that file, but also all the dependency types that we know, and we can resolve every type except if it's an untyped type of ActionScript. The result is a converted source code, so it's the Haxe code here. And here there come the external Haxe mocks in, because this is basically, I mean, we had not from the beginning, of course, all the external libraries already in Haxe available. I mean, this is also a discussion what we need to do, because yes, we need some libraries ported. Maybe we can also use an alternative and provide just the same API. But until we have that, we use just the mocks for it. So this also means this can result in a runtime error, of course, if the implementation is not there, but at least it compiles and it's running, and you have it basically converted in the right way. If you feed all that into the converter, the output will be a running version. And of course, then you need to see what is really actually not working. This works quite fine for us. This whole workflow is now inside our continuous integration system. So it's built for every pull request that we have. So every change you do in ActionScript, whenever we have that, then it runs also that one. And if that fails, of course, the ActionScript developer has to take some action and to fix it. And where we fix it? We fix it here, or we fix it in the tools. So, but we never fix it here. This is always intermediate output. Yeah, I think I'm okay in time. And yeah, thank you for your attention, of course. I hope that I teased a little bit that you also want to hear the details in the afternoon. It will be directly after lunch at 1 p.m. and will be presented by my team, not by myself. So I'm also happy that my team is here, basically. And yeah, thank you for your attention again. Yeah, any questions already? Okay.
About the converter, you're using our AS3 Ajax, right?
Yes.
And I'm hearing a lot that people extend it for their use. And I'm wondering, should we look into extending that easier somehow, or do you think it's in a good state where you have to modify the code anyway?
I would say it was okay to extend it. I mean, we had not really experience with Haxe. Yeah. So that was definitely the barrier that we had to how can we now extend it easily. But once we dived into that, it was, I think, easily extendable. And still, I mean, the other question would also, of course, would it make sense, of course, to contribute that code of that converter, right? I mean, that is, I would say, really a good extent that we did. Yes, this is something that we also thought about already. I mean, we are contributing to OpenFL and to other libraries, of course, also significantly already. But for that converter, that is not yet decided yet. I guess, of course, we can think about that. And also from the company point of view, we want to contribute, right? Also, we are here because of that. And but yeah, it's not yet decided. And there are, of course, some things that are not really unique, right? They work for us. And we need to kind of provide some settings that it can be customized a little bit, because yeah, it does something for us here and there. But there's also a lot of stuff that is really very common and others could use also easily. So yeah, maybe.
Is your generated Haxe in a state that if you in the future wanted to move your development off of ActionScript
Yes.
to the compiled code base, that is human readable and human maintainable?
Yes, absolutely. So the code is really perfectly clean. So that's really nice. And I mean, there are some issues that we had also in the beginning. I mean, the converter really does a good job. So right, if the converter knows all the types, basically it does a really cool job. Casting was one thing. For example, there are some casts which are these try-catch casts. And for example, these casts we replaced. So we also extended then in the compared stuff that these try-catch casts are not there anymore. So the code really is super clean. Right now, there's no plan to remake the mobile version from that. As I already said, or even if it's feature complete or it has the same feature set, it is really different in many places already here and there, just from the UI, from network, from everything. So that's not really easily to do. So we also put so much effort to make it more mobile-ish that if we now drop it again, that is not a good plan right now. So, but yeah, for the future, of course, it would be ideal to have just one code base. That's for sure. But right now, with that project, I'm not really seeing that. Yeah.
Did you have to optimize generated code? Since you said you don't edit generated code, do you use such features as inlining, Haxe features?
I mean, that's a good question, or maybe also to the team then later. And of course, there's the code. What we are facing also is the performance is not as good yet as the Flash version, but still we also did some quick wins already, right? So we looked into performance for sure. That was not the highest focus. The highest focus was basically to make it functional right now. And this is what we have. We have the core game running, and that's definitely nice, right? And from that point on, now we of course also optimized here and there and did some quick wins. And casting was one example of it, because casting was really slow at some places, and we just improved it in a way that it's working for us. Other optimizations, might be something for the future for sure. Okay. Sorry.
What about the file size? Is it the same like in Flash?
The file size, it's an interesting thing, because yesterday we had a review meeting also with within the company, so we have it every 2 weeks, and there it was presented. So yeah, the file size is huge, of course, in the beginning. I'm not exactly sure about the number now, but when it's transferred, right, this is a gzip compression that takes place, and we have minification on top of that already. And then the gzip version is 2.6 megabyte, I think, right now. We also have a short preloader in HTML5, basically that it kind of shows something to the player already while it is transferred. When we compare it to the Flash version is without gzip is also like kind of 4 megabyte, but with its gzip, then it's kind of round about 2 megabytes. So it's nearly the same. So it's not exactly the same, but it's not far away from each other, and that's working fine for us for now. So yeah.
Did you experience improvement or drop in runtime performance?
I mean, yeah, as I said, so definitely the performance is not as good as the Flash version right now. That's what you mean, right? Yeah, so definitely that's what we experience. As I said, we improved it already here and there in the libraries. We also see some problems. I mean, for example, we have Starling rendering in there, 3D accelerated rendering, which is performing quite okay. But then also we have the software rendering on top of that. We are using DOM rendering, and the DOM rendering, if the display tree really gets huge, then it's getting slow. And this is something, of course, we also need to look into more in detail. We have other options. We can reduce it, right? If possible, maybe we can also do some different things there so that the tree is small, because if the tree is small, then it's faster. But yeah, we just have to see. But yeah, it's not yet as good as the Flash version, but it's also kind of close. So it's not so far away.
Speaking about optimizing, do you optimize the initial action script code, or the tools, or the final text code?
The final hex code will never be touched manually, so that's the plan. So really, we want every change that we do. Oh, sorry, the curve now. I have to see it again. Sorry. Yeah, so we never change something in here, right? I mean, this is what we never touch. We also have not touched the compiler. So yet might be also something that we have to look into when it comes to performance. I don't know. But right now we never touch any code here, except of course, okay, if we port a library ourselves, then we touch it. No, that one. And the mocks, of course, is also something that we created. But if we really port a library ourselves, and that's what we did also, then we touch it. But this code is never touched, because that's just generated. So every single change that also needs to result in here needs to go somewhere in that code or in the tools. Dan, yeah.
So have you considered porting the whole code base to Haxe first and compile it to Flash, to Swift, and then maybe integrating OpenFL and compiling it to Haxe quickly?
So you mean from the Hex version also to have a Flash target?
Yeah,
That's
because Haxe can compile
yeah, right. I mean, of course, yeah, we thought that about that in the beginning. that this might be a good intermediate step at some point. So when we are not sure, for example, if the HTML5 version is not running so well, maybe then the Flash target is running better. But right now, I mean, we are not at that state. So we have still the Flash version, which is performing well, it's running well. And as I said, everything that is developed is directly continuous integration wise converted, and then we have it also in HTML5. So there's no need yet to do that, to compile from that Haxe version, which is not running completely, to Flash. Maybe there's something for the future, but right now there's no plan for that. So what we do is we have the Flash version, we have automation, we have also the HTML5 version now, really getting better every day. And then at some point, I guess we will switch. It's not defined exactly when, but I don't see right now that we will do a Flash target from that. Maybe if there are browser issues, we don't know yet, but yeah, no plans.
Sorry. So it took you around about a whole year to convert to this point, or was there a break in between?
I mean, of course, we had breaks, we have parental leaves, we had sickness and everything like in there. And of course, we started with 2 developers, not just by directly, okay, we know what we want to do and now we port. So that was not really happening. We created 2 prototypes, that's everything what we explain later. And of course, really porting and establishing the workflow. And then of course also I mean, as I said, it evolved, so, right? And when it comes to mock compilation and all these single steps, also we did something that was not the best idea, because as I said, we wanted to have as much automation as possible. But at some point, we also run into the question, okay, is it now worse to get the last percentages of automation, or can we have one manual step in between? And that was also something that we had. We dropped it at some point for some reasons, will be explained later. And now, yeah, we put the focus to have it really 100% automated. And then overall, it's nearly 1 year. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you.